This takes place 4 years ago in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, I'm originally from California, so trading up city life for a less urban life was really challenging for me. Making friends was hard, but I made the move to be with my dad, who lived in an apartment complex with a roommate. My dad was a trucker, so he was gone for weeks at a time, while I was left alone to work and come home to a foreign place that I was slowly becoming accustomed to. My roommate was gone most of the time because he had a girlfriend, and he would leave his dog with me, so I never felt truly alone. I also had an old lady for a neighbor that would come up and check on me too. That's how people were in that area, and I found it kind of nice how people knew their neighbors there. I got to know everyone in my building's name after about 6 months of living there. All except one, that is. There was a man, I'd say in his early to mid-50s, who lived directly below my apartment. He looked, for lack of a better description, like a creep. He was balding, except for on the sides of his head, which that hair was straggly too. He was tall and kind of skinny, and had outdated glasses from the 90s that you'd see on America's Most Wanted, and a thick mustache. He was the only person in the building who wasn't friendly, or at least didn't make the effort to say hello or introduce himself to me. He also happened to be the maintenance man for all 5 buildings. I didn't think much of this at first. I mean, I honestly don't care if you're not overtly friendly to me. I enjoy having peace of my own, and sometimes being too friendly is kind of suspicious to me. That's just a personal problem, I know, but I'm explaining why I didn't send up any red flags at first. One day, when I was pulling out of the driveway to go to work in the morning, I noticed across the large lawn that lead to the door to our buildings, the maintenance man was standing in the center, just staring directly at me. But stare is the wrong word. More like glare. At first, I looked around, confused, thinking perhaps that he was looking at someone or something behind me. I was the only one there, and although a bit creeped out, I shrugged it off and continued with my day, forgetting all about it. The next day, I was over at my neighbor Claire's apartment, the older lady who I mentioned before, and she happened to bring up a maintenance issue she had, but mentioned that she would never ask the maintenance man for anything, and neither should I. I tried to ask her more about what she meant by that, but she ended up being very broad and said something along the lines of, "He's just a known creep around here." So, fast forwarding to the first incident. It was around 2 a.m. and I was still awake, but only barely, sitting on the couch watching Parks and Rec, alone in the apartment. I was starting to drift off into sleep when I heard a soft noise near the front door. Thankfully, the show was very low in volume, because normally I don't pick up on quiet noises most of the time. I turned off the TV and just began listening. Next to the living room on that right side is the patio area, and on the left is the kitchen and the front door. The light from the moon and the outside lamps were flooding through the patio glass door, so I could see the doorknob to the front door moving. But not just moving, someone was trying to use a key. In an instant, the door flung open and I was on my feet, with nowhere to hide at that point. I stood my ground and saw the silhouette step into the kitchen, and that's when I saw that it was the maintenance man. My stomach dropped and he stopped dead in his tracks when he spotted me, looking as if it was unexpected to find me awake. I noticed that he had a very large coat on, even though it wasn't winter or even cold that particular night. I noticed that only because the jacket looked bulky, as if he were carrying things in it that I couldn't see. "What the fuck are you doing?" was all I managed to squeak out. I was shaking, my knees feeling like they were going to give out. For reference, I was a 22-year-old woman standing on a whopping 5'4" with no way to defend myself at all from where I was standing. He looked shocked, which made me feel like I had gained a little power from the situation. He retorted, confusedly and angrily with,
Your toilet is making a loud noise that I could hear from my bedroom.
I was angry and terrified, and only reacted with more anger when I saw him scrambling for excuses.
So you just let yourself into my apartment at 2 a.m? I'm reporting this to management first thing in the morning.
He stepped closer to me then. I backed up a few steps, but still stood my ground, quickly turning on the light closet next to me so he could see my fury.
Listen, the toilet is rumbling. I need to check it, now.
And now, I was trembling so hard that I could barely stand. I had adrenaline and anger and fear all coursing heavily through my body.
Get the fuck out of my house!
He started to take the liberty to look around the kitchen where he was standing. And my head immediately thought, shit, what if he's going for a knife or something? And that's when he said it.
Listen, I can come over whenever I want.
That sentence makes me shiver to this day. I didn't know what to do, and felt the power of the situation quickly dwindling down to a bad feeling that something bad was going to happen.
Listen, if you don't get the fuck out of my apartment right now, I'm going to start screaming as loud as I can.
My voice was cracking and a bit shaky, which made my heart drop into my stomach. I immediately felt like I was going to be sick when he took yet another step forward and toward me.
Listen, check the lease. I can come in whenever I want. I'll see you later, okay?
He winked at me, creating a wave of nausea, and I felt faint. He slowly turned around and walked out, closing the door behind him and even going far enough as to lock it from the outside with his extra key. The next day, I contacted management as soon as their office opened. I could tell that the conversation wasn't going anywhere when the manager sounded irritated right off the bat. When I told her that the guy entered my apartment illegally, she cut me off and told me that they do not allow any illegal activity and to take what I was saying very seriously. I thought, yes, I've got him. Until the manager said,
"Listen, you can't just throw around accusations without proof. This man has dedicated over 20 years to working for this company, and we don't plan on getting rid of him anytime soon. Perhaps if you read over your lease like you should have."
Yes, she was actually scolding me.
"You would have seen the clause that states that a maintenance worker has keys to the entire property, and if there is a maintenance issue, they are permitted to access the property at any time of day."
This absolutely floored me. It couldn't possibly be legal. But of course, I'm from California, and of course, I didn't read the lease carefully. When I moved there, my dad was already living in the apartment, and I literally had nowhere else to go. So if I were going to be living there, I was going to have to sign the lease, no matter what. So I just did. So, needless to say, nothing got done about this whole thing. Fast forward again. A few days go by and I don't see Mr. Maintenance Freak. Until I do. This time, I'm pulling in after a 10-hour-long shift at work. I haven't forgotten about the scary incident, but I had put it at the back of my mind for the time being to concentrate on other things, although I did lose sleep over it. I park my car facing the large lawn area again and start using my phone for a few minutes. I'm peering down at my phone and glance up for a split second before I see him there. He's standing across the lawn, staring angrily at me again. And I mean furious. I quickly look back down and pretend to not have seen him, getting that sinking feeling again. As a paranoid person, I put the key in the ignition just in case, and pretend to keep scrolling on my phone while subtly locking my door. I glance up again, and this time, he's stalking towards me, really fast. I look in my rearview mirror, hoping to see someone else that he may be stomping angrily towards, and of course, no one else is there. It's nearly dark now, but when he gets about 10 to 15 feet away from the front of my car, I can hear him shouting something, but I can't make out what he's saying.
Now, I put my phone down and am watching him come right at me until he reaches my window and starts banging on it with all his might, and slams his body into the door. He is also fidgeting angrily with the handle, even though the doors are locked. My car doesn't have automatic locks, so I'm praying to God that all my doors are locked at this point. My hands are shaking so bad that I'm having trouble starting the car. When I finally do, I realize what he's saying, which was a repeat cycle of the following phrases.
I'm going to get you, bitch. I told you I can come in whenever I want. You really want to take me on? I'll kill you.
I peeled out of there so fast, not even knowing where to go. I drove to the next county over, found a motel and stayed the night there. The next day, I took work off and went straight to the management's office. I told them exactly what happened, but no matter what I said, they just didn't believe me. This maintenance man was apparently God's gift to mankind or something. He was a monument to the company, and they appreciated his 20 years of service and dedication to them over him risking someone's life with threats. Long story short though, I lost it. I called her psychotic and ended up getting evicted. I reported all of this to the police, but between the lack of evidence that I had and his perfect record shining references from his employers that seemed to love him, the police said that there was nothing that they could do to move forward at that point. My dad and I ended up finding a nice home about 10 minutes away from that place. I ended up inviting Claire, my old neighbor, to the new house a few months later. She told me that there was a single woman in the apartment before the roommate and my dad had moved in there that also left in a hurry after something happened with the maintenance man taking photos of her walking to and from her apartment to her car. When she confronted him about it, apparently he told her that he could do whatever he wants. I guess in Kansas City that maintenance workers are like God. They get away with whatever they want and have shining reputations. And needless to say, it's been 4 years and I am now back in California.